Welcome back to another edition of the Hart2Heart Podcast. And my guest today is April Hutchinson. So April is actually an acquaintance I knew from years ago. She lives in London, but she's a Canadian powerlifter. So April, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mike, and it's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. I see you've been, making lots of waves recently. Like we were just talking about before the show, you've been on Piers Morgan 3 times in the past 3 months or so. Is that right?
Yeah, I first went on in August, and then I think it was twice in October. So yeah, talking about the powerlifting and my suspension.
Yeah, so that's something obviously that I, want to chat with you about today. That was the main reason why I did want to reach out. So we've seen there's been lots of discussions that have been going on. Joe Rogan's brought it up many times how, trans or biological men are now competing in female sports and kind of destroying records and stuff like that. And it seems like that's what's going on in your sport right now. So I know that you were and congratulations on this, but the North American deadlifter record holder. So that's amazing. What was the number, by the way? Just curious.
Oh, so my top deadlift was 507. So
holy shit.
And that's for a 47-year-old, by the way. I'll just say a lot of people don't know how old I am. So I'm 47, turning 48 in April. So that's for an old lady.
Yeah, I thought that's wild. I'm 39. I thought you were like my age or younger.
No.
You're 47.
I know, it's crazy. I have good genes.
That's wild. Yeah, you do. But 507, I don't know, what's more impressive than that. I mean, that's 5 plates aside and more.
Yeah.
So congratulations on
Thank
that
you.
lift. Kind of almost just shocked at that number. It's distracting. So one thing, I just can't believe it. 507. So one thing that I do want to ask you about. So who is, and I'm not trying to pick on anyone, but I heard you brought up Anne during an interview with Piers Morgan. So who is Anne?
Anne. So Anne is the transgender athlete in my federation who I actually met years ago, just virtually through Facebook during COVID. That's kind of when everyone kind of met everyone virtually. So Anne was just starting out lifting, and he would write to me and ask me for advice for powerlifting and stuff. So at that time, I actually thought that Anne was a female. So it wasn't until that Anne and I had a conversation about Laura Hubbard going to the Olympics. I don't know if you remember that years ago. A Olympic lifter went from New Zealand and was a biological male. And Anne was talking about it. And I said, I completely disagree with that. Men should not be in women's sports. And Anne said to me, well, I'm a man. I was born a male. And I said, you were? I said, I had no idea. I said, well, how far do you expect to go with powerlifting? And he said that he wants to go to the Worlds. So I said, well, I completely disagree. You should not be lifting with us, with the women. And he blocked and deleted me. That was like 4 years ago. And I haven't had any contact, no conversations with him whatsoever. But I did notify my federation, the Canadian Powerlifting Union, about this. And I mean, this started back end of last year. And then all of this year, I was literally writing them letters, not just myself, other lifters wrote them as well. And they just completely ignored our letters. I sent like a 3-page heartfelt letter of the psychological damage that it does to females and just the physical strain having to compete with a male. And there was no response. Not even a hello, we got your email, nothing. So unfortunately, I'm here today fighting with a lawyer, trying to save women's sports. Like, I've been obviously suspended, right, for speaking up about the matter. So that's what's been happening over this last year.
That's crazy. And so when did you first compete, or when did a first trans man or biological male compete against you in female sports? Well,
so fast forward after we talked on Facebook and he blocked and deleted me. 2 years after that, I saw that he was lifting and I could see his numbers. And then I saw the numbers dramatically spike. Like, he put about 300 pounds on all his lifts in a year. So, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know possibly he went off the hormone replacement because his numbers just spiked like abnormal. So, and then he started looking more obviously like just had more of like a manly mannerisms to him. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm just saying he got hella strong really fast in a year. And then he was going to nationals and I was supposed to compete against him. So the day that I was supposed to show up to compete against him, I told the judges I will not participate if there's a biological male competing. And then 20 protesters walked in and we protested the whole event.
Wow. Okay. And so what was the result of the protest?
Oh, well, the CPU president tried to kick us out. They threatened calling the police on all the women. And it was bad. I mean, the response to the protest was horrible. They basically said, like, that was uncalled for. You shouldn't have disrupted the competition. You know, Anne has every right to compete. And then they sent me a letter of discipline saying that I will be suspended and I won't be able to compete on Team Canada this year if I keep speaking about the matter. And speaking of the matter is me calling Anne a biological male. That's what I'm suspended for, is for speaking truth.
So basically you're suspended because you've said that Anne is a biological male and you don't want to compete against biological males. And because of that, they're suspending you. In Anne's case, they're allowing this person to compete against women, even though they're a biological male. And this person's probably hasn't encountered any resistance for doing this. Is that correct?
No, I mean, I think in the beginning, people didn't know what to do. Anne has a couple followers. I mean, not many at all, but I mean, there's going to be people that will support it because, you know, there's the people that believe, like, you know, they just, first of all, it doesn't affect them, right? So people are going to support it where it's like, well, I don't care. It's not going to take my podium spot. And then you have the group that just want to love everyone. They just want to be part of a group. It's like the virtue signalers of life, right? They jump on every bandwagon.
Absolutely.
So those are the supporters, but...
And there was actually something that came out, it was a slightly off topic, but I saw Jordan Peterson tweet out yesterday, but environmental activism, like that trait is associated now with narcissism, Machiavellianism, and anti-conventionalism. There's a study done on it. And, you know, I can see some of the same types of people that would be supporting Anne and, you know, supporting biological males competing in female sports. And again, to your point, like, every single female who's in biological sports is not going to want a biological male competing against them. And they should be the ones who have the most say. They're the competitors. They're the athletes. They're the ones who are competing. So they should have the say in all this. But it's being that voice is being taken away from them. And now we're having, you know, biological males compete against biological females, which obviously gives them an insane advantage, which we can talk about as well. So, you know, I'm a family physician. I do quite a bit of TRT for men and sometimes for women as well. You know, obviously, you know, giving testosterone gives someone a massive advantage. When someone's biologically male, they already have high amounts of testosterone, which is going to give them a gigantic advantage. Not only that, and this is a little bit of a nuanced discussion as well, even with men. But even if you have high testosterone at any point in your life, so even if you take steroids at any point in your life, if you come off of them and you do it properly, you can still keep some of those gains if you do it properly. So what do I mean by that? Say if someone benches 300 pounds naturally, and then they go on, you know, a cycle of roids, or they do tren, whatever it is, they get up to 400 pounds or 450. They come off of that properly and they do everything well. They still might retain. So they still might be able to bench 330 or something at the end of it. So it gives them this gigantic advantage. And I don't think that's being discussed at all. And I don't think that the people making those decisions understand that. But I think that the female biological athletes who are competing, they understand that, and their voice is just not being recognized.
Well, no, and precisely, and them suspending me, so they gave me a 2-year suspension. 2 years is the same suspension you would give someone that got caught for doping. It is a harsh
Yes,
penalty.
that's what John Jones got when he was caught in the UFC, was a 2-year suspension. The
So
UFC
that's going to silence everyone. So they were making an example. I am appealing my suspension, by the way. I do find out at the end of December. So I have a good lawyer. We are appealing it. But it's funny when you go back to the whole testosterone thing. I don't know if you've heard of the Center for Ethics of Sports, like the CCES. This body governs our sports. They set the rules. I have to take a course in order to compete in powerlifting. I have to each year take a course. Every powerlifter has to do this in sports. And you have to go through like a slideshow, and they basically tell you like, okay, you can't do banned substances. Testosterone is banned. Steroids are banned. We can't take those. I got tested. I got drug tested. I can't take hormones even if I'm in menopause. I have to get an exemption. I have to apply. It's so hard. And they might even say no. But a full-grown biological male who transitions after the age of 20 just look at his numbers. He's number 1 in the world right now. He wants to go to Worlds. Like, it's not like I just can't believe they don't see this. But the same CCES, Ethics in Sports, who give me this slideshow that I have to complete and pass in order to powerlift, they also put out last year on their Instagram account, they said, testosterone has no bearing on sports. Ladies, you need to work harder and train harder, and nutrition is also key.
That is hilarious.
I'll send it to you.
That is hilarious. Like, if you give me 2 female athletes and I drug up one of them and I don't drug up the other, it's going to be real hard for the girl who's non-drug to compete against the drug girl, especially if you're using, high amounts of testosterone. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, hard work is incredible. And if you do like the roids and the hard work, that's, what people in the Olympia get and all that kind of stuff. But like, if you are just taking, a substance that's dramatically is going to make you stronger, you probably are going to beat people without doing as much work. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So it's ridiculous that's happening right now.
And even Mike, it's even as simple as sometimes, like when I'm going to training, I'll take a caffeine pill and a rock star. That even helps my lifts a little bit. Like, gives me that kick, right? I'm more energetic, and that's just a caffeine pill, which is legal, right? But the point is, if I wanted to, I have nothing against people that want to take steroids or take TRT or anything like that, but if I wanted to take that stuff, I can, but I would have to go into a federation like the Canadian Powerlifting League, because they have tested and non-tested. I could go over there, but I choose to be with one of the more prestigious, the IPF, which is a drug-tested federation. And, so it's just, it's crazy. Like, I feel there's just so much misinformation out there too, right? And I think that's why a lot of people too support trans athletes, because you got this garbage that the CCS is spewing out there that ladies have to work harder,
Yeah, that's not fair. Like, if you work harder, you're not going to outcompete someone who takes testosterone.
Yeah.
Like, that should be the message. Like, that's the reality. Like, it's very, very difficult to beat cheaters. Like, hard work is not always going to overcome the work of a cheater. And, people should recognize that, and the federation should recognize that. And you shouldn't be, having to compete against, biological males. It's
well, totally, even if they take if they take blockers or hormone replacement, like I said, this one individual transitioned after 20. They're still going to maintain a certain amount of muscle mass. Like, I don't know if you saw the video he put out back in March making fun of women. And why is the women's bench press so weak? Making fun of us. I was like, we're not designed that way. We don't have the same muscle mass in our chests. Like, bench is my worst. Like, I have to work my butt off to get any type of increment on my bench. So
what is your bench?
My highest bench was like 210. Like,
That's still good, but I know exactly what you mean though, because I've seen a lot of girls deadlift 225. Now, you can deadlift 507, so you're kind of crushing those women. But like, for most women, if you can deadlift 225, that's pretty solid, But I've been going to the gym. I mean, I mostly work out at home now, but I've been going to the gym since I was like 14, and like, I don't know if I've ever seen a girl put like even a plate on each side for bench. Like it's pretty rare. You see a girl go in and put, you know, a plate on each side, 45 pounds and bump out 135 for 8. Like I've almost never seen it. But yeah, deadlifts, you're right. And I don't know the, you know, the mechanism behind that, but for whatever reason, you absolutely are right. And I know we're not really talking about that today, but just out of curiosity, do you know why that is?
Well, like for bench and stuff. Well, keep in mind there are different factors. So I'm almost 6 foot tall. So people that are taller are going to have a harder time. And I'm also, the funny part is I'm in the highest weight class, so which they need to change eventually. So the cap is 185 pounds. So I weigh, like right now I'm 210. So at my heaviest, I was 230 and I felt miserable. So I've lost weight. But anyways, the girls that I'm competing against are 250, 300 pounds, sometimes 300 something, like just massive women. And so when I get up there, my boyfriend's always like, oh, you look so athletic. Like you look like an athlete. It's always fun to watch you because you look nothing like your competitors. And, you know, I take pride in that. Like I really take care of myself. And I didn't want to gain weight just so I could lift heavier, right? So when you're tall, when you squat and when you bench, you just have that extra long limbs that are going to make you have to go down that much further. But it does help in the deadlift. And that's why all the strong men like Eddie Hall and all these big, huge deadlifters are strong men competitors are tall, right? But as far as bench, it definitely helps if I was shorter, squattier, larger, more chest.
Short arms. Yeah, short arms seems to be one of the keys for having, you know, a really good bench press. So another thing too that I saw you post recently, this is kind of crazy. So someone got a scholarship recently. I forget which university it was, but somewhere in the States, they got a scholarship for volleyball. I believe it was, you posted on your Twitter, and the university didn't know that they were a biological male, but they now got a scholarship for being a female volleyball player. Is that something that you know a little bit about? Or
I haven't. I saw that Riley Gaines posted about it and I retweeted. So I haven't. I mean, I met Riley Gaines actually, and she's I met her this year in Texas. We did like a.
And just for people who don't know who she is, just tell people
Riley Gaines. So back when I first started my whole fight against my federation, I was so alone in my battle. I felt like I had no support. So I reached out to Icons. Icons is like a group in the States of like Olympic athletes. Huge names are on it. Like even Martina, and there's an Olympic rower, Inga. There's all these different people that are like ex-Olympic athletes, NCAA. I was actually, I think, besides Dr. Linda Blade, I was probably the second Canadian to kind of join this group of women that fight for fairness. So Riley Gaines was one of the spokespersons, and she had to compete against Leah Thomas, the male-born athlete, a couple years ago. So that has been a hot topic, right? So her and I met in Texas. We did like a conference speech basically about keeping female sports female. So her and I kind of work together. We talk all the time and kind of, you know, if she has something she wants to post, I kind of help her with it. I notified her about the 50-year-old swimmer that identified as a 13-year-old girl and went in and changed with the girls in their locker room. Like that's what's happening now. And
that's wild. Like that's wild. Like, and you know, obviously there's certain men too with certain like, you know, weird like fetishes and stuff where like they like, I guess, dressing up as females and going into locker rooms, but yet they're still straight. So like it makes them aroused to like put on female clothing and go into locker rooms. I forget what the exact term for it. There is some medical term, I think. I should know. I should look it up. Yeah. But yeah, so, you know, that stuff's going on, and it seems like it's, you know, more frequent than people think it is. Like, I think people are a little bit naive to this. Like what I'm getting at is that like if a man can figure out a way to get into a female washroom, that's going to happen all the time. Like there's lots of creepy people in this world. Like they're everywhere. And so like to think that someone's not going to take advantage of that is absolutely crazy.
So I'll touch on this because this one person, he actually is a York University professor. His specialty is child and youth. He decided he was going to identify as a 12-year-old girl completely after that Bill C-16 was released. So guess what? Bill C-16, it protects predators, it protects pedophiles. Because that's saying that with Bill C-16, any man, you, Mike, anyone could identify as whatever they want, a female, like a 14-year-old female. And of course, no one's going to question them on it. And you can go into the women's washroom. You can go into the girls' locker room because the police are doing nothing about it. And they have to like put their hands up. They're like, oh, I don't want to touch this. It's like.
So right now I could go into, like if I went into a restaurant, I could potentially go into a female washroom. And then if someone says to me, you're not supposed to be in here, I can say I identify as female and no one would kick me out.
Exactly.
That's wild. And then the same thing I think is true with regards to powerlifting. So if I showed up to a powerlifting competition and said, I identify as female, I'm going to compete as a female competitor today and do the deadlift and bench press competition, then I would win.
Oh, yeah. Just call up the CPU.
Well, I probably wouldn't beat your deadlift, actually, but I would beat your bench press.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you just have to call the CPU, get your membership, go compete, just say you identify, no proof given, and that's it. You're in. You've smashed all you smashed all the records. That's what happened.
Do you know Zuby?
I was interviewed by Zuby. Yeah, I know him quite well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I've had Zuby on here as well. I didn't know you guys were connected, but that's awesome that you guys were. Yeah. So Zuby, as you know, people who aren't familiar with Zuby, this is probably 3 years ago now he did this, or maybe even more. It was a while ago. But he's a black dude from the UK. He identified as a female, went into a powerlifting competition, and then just destroyed the British powerlifting records. So it's a hilarious video that he did. It got retweeted, I don't know how many times, and viewed how many times, but that's kind of one of the things that basically skyrocketed his career and got his first appearance on Joe Rogan. But that's wild that I could do that right now.
Yeah. Well, that's why I went on with, so basically I was on Tucker Carlson back in March and he was talking about the whole Zuby thing. And then because of that, I got connected to Zuby. So then I was talking to Zuby, and lo and behold, an actual Team Canada coach, a male who's like been a coach with my federation forever, actually walked into one of the competitions and broke the bench record, and he took it away from the transgender male. So it was so ironic. But he did it to prove a point. So now he holds the Alberta bench press record, and Anne holds all the other records. So all the records in Alberta are held by a man except for one, I think the squat.
And so what he did is that he just said, I identify as a female, and just walked in and then smashed the record just to prove a point. That's kind of funny.
The funny part was Anne and all the supporters of Anne were like, that's horrible. You shouldn't be able to do that. Like, oh, and I was like, well, how is it any different than what Anne did?
Yeah. It's like, okay, so that man is ruining like trans men sports in women. Is that your argument?
Exactly.
Okay, well then why can't we argue that a trans man is ruining sports for biological women? Like that's a way more logical argument.
Exactly.
So yeah, that doesn't make any sense there at all. Just going back to the change room things for a second, have you ever like encountered any difficulties, or have you ever had any like awkward encounters with someone who did, go into a female washroom who was biologically male?
Well, not really uncomfortable. Like a reason why I'm a big advocate for not just only female only sports, but I'm a big spokesperson for female only, like say locker rooms, bathrooms, shelters, and prisons, right? Like we need to have our own spaces, because I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. And this is back when the gender neutral bathrooms were introduced. And I was in New York City and I went to the washroom and I came out and there was like a communal, like a little hand to wash your hands. And I came out and there was a guy in there washing his hands with me. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I said, I went into the wrong bathroom. He's like, oh no, this is like and I was startled. And I was like, he's like, and it was like kind of like a nightclub setting, right? And I was like, oh, I said, shit. Like, I didn't know that. And I just felt like I don't drink anymore. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I just know alcohol could do to people. And I thought like, man, like that's not a safe environment to have alcohol, but men in the women's washrooms. And I just remember at that point, I was like, I hope this doesn't come to Canada. And then it did come to Canada for a little bit, but then they took them out again because of
it's still,
but they do have them now,
here.
But then they brought them back again. And now I'm seeing some of my restaurants that I go to. I won't name any names, but some really awesome restaurants and a theater downtown London that has taken away.
I'm going to name the theater. Yeah, I said I'm going to name the theater because I was there last night. I didn't mean to interrupt you, April.
Go ahead, do it.
Yeah. So, my fiance likes to do like an annual kind of, theater, Christmas.
That's what I do,
Christmas, So last year we went to see Elf. This year actually wasn't Christmas theme. It was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Willy Wonka, whatever. But we just went there last night. But that's the only time I've actually ever seen a gender neutral washroom. But it is really odd when like you come out. Guys are weird, right? Like we're still kind of doing up our pants after we, use the washroom kind of thing. And like, we just want to, go in and do our business and leave. And like, I don't think women want to be doing their makeup when some guy is just like coming out of the washroom and, walking up to do his hands after he just did his business. Like girls don't want
but
that.
That's the thing. Like we are different creatures. Like we women go to bathrooms in like herds and we like talk and we talk. And sometimes we change and we do this and that. And like, I don't want to be sitting beside a guy, but let alone, I don't want to send my 6-year-old niece into a bathroom unsupervised or going in with men. Like, I think, you've heard in Toronto, people getting busted for putting cameras underneath the stalls and looking and peeping. And, but yeah, it is that theater. And I went to Elf last year and that's when I discovered it. And I wrote a review and I was so angry because I said to them, do not take away women's bathrooms. At least give us an option. And the guy at the theater is like, well, you can use the handicap. I was like, I don't want to take away the handicap from someone because you took a women's washroom away. You need to have a unisex, a men's, and options. And same with one of the restaurants downtown here, Mexican restaurant. They took it away. And I was really pretty pissed. I told them how I felt. So...
Well, that's good. I mean, we do need people speaking up and, fighting back against this woke agenda, because if we don't, it'll just keep getting, worse and worse and worse. So, I'm happy that there's people like yourself, talking about that. Just coming back to like the bill C-116. So I don't know too much about this particular bill. So what does this bill entail and how are Canadians affected by it?
Well, I mean, so the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? The Charter of Rights and Freedoms, I think that came out in 1982. I forget which exact year, but it basically protects people based on sex, biological sex, race, religion, age, even. It's all about discrimination, right? And being protected. So now Trudeau, I think it was 2000, I was trying to think of the year that Jordan Peterson got told he had to take sensitivity training. But
so I'm not sure, but I'm a big fan of Jordan. I've been on Michaela's podcast. I know the family a little bit and stuff.
Bill C-16, basically what they did was they added gender identity and gender expression. So now that's put in with age, sex, religion, race, and all that stuff. So basically it says that you can't stop anyone from, basically in layman terms, you can't stop anyone from like Now, this is different when it comes to sports, right? Because they actually are taking away women's rights, right? So they just can't come in and take what they want, but this is what they think they can do. But it just basically says like, hey, you can identify as whatever you want and you can't be discriminated. So like you said earlier, if you want to identify as a 13-year-old girl, you are protected under this.
That's wild. And if I want to change my race, if I want to identify as Asian,
literally, people are already doing that, Mike. It's already happening.
That's absolutely wild. I wonder if you switch, if you start identifying in a particular race, if you can start saying particular words. That'd be very, very interesting.
Can you imagine? But I can really sing my favorite rap songs out in public.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I saw there was a clip. Doja Cat was really upset at someone. She literally said in the audience, like, if you're white, be careful, don't say those words, something like that. A couple people on Twitter like retweeted it and said like, this is like clearly like a racist thing. But anyways, that's going to become more of an issue as more and more people start to identify as different races. I guess people are saying that they're transracial right now, which is, I don't know when the silliness or wokeness is going to end, but hopefully it does end soon.
Well, the only way it's really going to change is once Trudeau's out. And sadly, it needs a change of government. So everyone vote Pierre if you can, because I actually I've gotten a lot of support from Maxime from the PPC party, but I would like to vote for them. But at the same time, I do know that conservatives are probably going to win, and I don't want to really throw my vote away. But he has been very supportive. I did meet Doug Ford a couple of weeks ago at a conservative, because I am a conservative, convention. And it's funny. I was wearing my sweatshirt and he's like, "Oh, what does that sweatshirt mean?" I was like, "Well, I'm fighting for fairness in women's sports. Do you not know what's going on?" And I said, "I'd really like you to use your voice." I said, you've done nothing for women's rights. You've done nothing. Like, I just saw today, which I'm so pissed off, that he's putting alcohol in all the convenience stores. And I was like, so that's really going to benefit society, right? And I was like, so why don't, like, as a recovering alcoholic too, I'm probably more biased, but we do.
No, I understand your point, because I can speak to this just a little bit, maybe more than some people from Ontario can, because I'm from Newfoundland. I don't know if you know that.
I was just there.
Okay, yeah. Were you? So, and they actually had a pretty big powerlifting competition.
I was there, nationals.
This year. You were there. Okay, yeah. Because Lane Norton was there and stuff as well.
I know him, Lane, yeah.
Oh, you know Lane, dude? That's cool. So one thing about Newfoundland, like, I've always been able to get beer at the convenience stores, gas stations, that kind of thing. But the sad part is I love Newfoundland, but we do have more alcoholism in general. I'm pretty sure anyway that historically I haven't seen any recent stats, but we've have more alcoholism than other provinces. And I do wonder if that is a contributing factor, so I completely understand your concerns with that. And, maybe, making things more accessible is not, the best thing to do, and not to go off too much on a tangent, but like, I don't know if you're familiar with James Clear and Atomic Habits. So, it's a great book for anyone if you ever want to learn about habits and how to break them or just kind of rewire your brain. But one of the things that he, mentions in his book is that you want to make whatever task that you're doing, whatever habit that you want to get rid of, to be very, very difficult. So if it's like, you watch too much TV, he has an example in his book, like, you should take like your TV and like put it in the closet or something like that, or unplug it, so that every time you have to do it, it becomes like basically a huge pain in the ass, so that you don't do it and you don't continue that habit. And so, when you look at putting, alcohol in different convenience stores, maybe someone thinks, they don't want to drink tonight, that kind of thing. And they go out, they go pick up a pack of gum, they see, a few beers in the cooler, like, oh, I'm just going to pick up and have a few beers, which maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. So, I do think that, accessibility does sometimes lead to worse outcomes overall. And I wonder, if that was factored into Doug Ford's decision when he, suggested that we put alcohol in convenience stores.
Yeah. And I wonder, because even I know me, when I was drinking, I would do anything just to get alcohol. Like, I planned my day around as to, what stores open later, what stores open after 9 that I can go. even when I go to the grocery store now and they have like the wine rack there with the free samples, I salivate. I'm like, wow, like, I notice it. I always notice it. So I'm just saying, like, I know that I think I was in Vegas 2 years ago and the cab driver was telling me that they have the highest rate of DUIs because people are literally walking all over down the street with alcohol, right? From casino to casino. So I'm very interested to see what the stats are in the next year or whenever this plan goes into place. I would like to see the stats to see, because we have an addiction crisis right now too, right? And a homelessness problem. So
yeah. So, I obviously I want to chat with you about, the transgender issue that's going on in sports and female sports. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things about you as well, other than just this issue that you've brought up and kind of, shared with the world recently on Pierce Morgan and different stations. But, that's an interesting point. So, when did you become a sober athlete, April?
So I went into rehab in September 2019. I had always struggled with alcoholism, and I did go to rehab a couple times prior to that. And I was actually sober for 7 years. And then I relapsed over a boy. Like, I met a guy in Paris, France, and I relapsed. And it took me quite a while to get back and get sober. So I went to Westover, really great facility. And when I came out, I actually started powerlifting. But I had dabbled in powerlifting with Chris Clements. He was my coach when I used to do MMA. So I really liked powerlifting and my body just adapted well to it. So when I came out, I was like, well, I need some type of activity to keep me sober, to help with my stress levels and anxiety. So I started powerlifting, and then COVID hit basically a couple months after. So I literally spent every day in my trainer's gym. We just had like a little makeshift gym. And I trained every day. And then when I came out, I was like Superwoman. I just basically went to my first competition and got gold medal. And I went right to nationals. And that was in Newfoundland, actually.
That's awesome. Yeah. And what was your stay like in Newfoundland?
I loved it. And I went back again for Worlds. Worlds was there. Oh, so maybe that was the one. Because I went to...
yeah, I think Lane competed in the Worlds.
That's right.
Yeah,
so it was Worlds that we were there together. And I actually got 4th place. I was so happy because that was like my second competition ever going to Worlds. Like, usually you don't do that. Usually you go from like a local competition to centrals to nationals. But I went to nationals and then I went to Worlds. So I got 4th out of all.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And so I imagine next year you're going to try and even do better. Is that right?
If I'm competing, I'm not even allowed to compete right now. So...
Oh, right. I don't know how I forgot that. That's unreal, though. So you go to nationals, and right away you're 4th in the world after that.
Yeah.
So in terms of just coming back to the alcohol for a sec, like, do you feel like that's really changed your training now that you're using less alcohol or no alcohol?
Well, I mean, I was so sick before. I was a daily drinker, right? And the alcohol was literally something I had to drink every day to stay alive because I was getting seizures. I was just ill. Like, I would try to quit. Like, I would try to not drink that day. And by 4 o'clock, I'd have such bad tremors in the shakes and just volatile. Like, I would just throw up everywhere. Like, it was horrible. So I literally needed to give myself a little bit of alcohol just to like get through my day. But I think it was 2018, right before I got sober, I had actually tried to commit suicide because I woke up in the ICU unit on a breathing tube and I literally almost died. I overdosed on drugs and alcohol, and that was my wake up call because I tried so hard to quit and I just couldn't find any way. And I kept disappointing myself and my family and everyone around me that I was just like, I just didn't want to live anymore. Like, even just talking about it, I tear up because I couldn't find any end to it. So I just tried to end it myself. And then thank God I lived. And, now I feel like, I'm a really good advocate for helping others with addictions. Not just fairness in sports, but also, I'm a volunteer in my community and I help other people struggling as well. So
Yeah, there's definitely a big, problem with addictions right now, and basically a bigger problem maybe with, mental health, because what leads to addiction generally is, poor mental health. Like, not all the time. Like, sometimes people who are feeling pretty good, who just use drugs on the weekend, will get addicted. But the people who, struggle the most, or who are most likely to get addicted, are people who kind of use it daily to kind of cope. So if you're someone who uses it just to kind of like amplify a mood on Friday or Saturday night, you may not get addicted, but you're definitely still susceptible. But if someone, uses it every day, and it uses it as like a coping mechanism, as opposed to something that just like elevates your mood for a few hours a week, then I think you're in real trouble. One question I have to ask you about that: did you ever, you probably know what I'm going to ask you, did you ever consider using cannabis when you were, struggling with alcohol?
So funny. I was actually going to say something, but
and it's okay if you don't like cannabis. Okay. Like, cannabis is not for everyone. Like, I know that. CBD, I really think is a tool that can really help a lot of people. It doesn't cause any psychoactive effects, but, I'm not someone who's just going to say that everyone should use cannabis. I know lots of people who use THC and don't do well at all. So, you have to be careful with it. So I just want to preface that before.
Yeah. No, I mean, so even as a young age, when I started drinking, I also dabbled. I did drugs as well, right? I didn't do anything hardcore. Like, I never injected, but I'll tell you, I tried every drug under the sun. But the thing is so when I was trying to quit drinking, I always thought I had anxiety. Right. And I actually, once I got sober, my anxiety went away. So it wasn't even anxiety. It was just withdrawal. And withdrawal doesn't only just affect your body by the shakes, it affects your mind. So I would literally have thoughts that would go in my head around and around and around. And like, just, you know what I mean? It was crazy. So, and I felt very alone. Right. So I remember I walked down to High Times on Richmond Street, and I was like, okay, what do I need? Like, so I got one of those pens, right? I was like, okay, I'll cut up the marijuana. What do I got? I tried edibles, like cookies. They would make me a little tired. I'd get laughing and goofy, but then I was like, I'd get tired. But then all of a sudden, if you stay up too long, I would actually be wired and I couldn't sleep.
And it didn't decrease the alcohol cravings, like at the end?
And and then I tried smoking it on the pen, like this, like chopping it up and smoking it. But I'm so weak. Like, every time I try to smoke it, I'd cough my brains out, and I hated it. But even the smell, like today, I can't even stand the smell of it. It's not for me. Then I tried a CBD, like a pen that you can inhale, and it just didn't do anything for me. So I've never had, and then when I did try it when I was younger, I would always hallucinate. I was like that. I remember the doctors at Westover, like, you're that odd 20% that actually hallucinates when they take marijuana. I was like, I guess. So I'm just I don't have a good relationship with it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's a medicine that's for you, or that's worked for you very well.
And I just don't want to take anything now. Like, I don't have anxiety anymore. When I got sober, my anxiety went away. And I'm like,
and I was going to say something to that too. So alcohol can decrease your baseline dopamine. And so dopamine, as many people know now, is one of the neurotransmitters. It makes us feel good. It's responsible for motivation and kind of just that get up and go feeling that we need. So if you have lower levels of dopamine because you're using alcohol, and then you stop using alcohol, obviously your dopamine levels are going to return. And that may be the reason why you started feeling better after you stopped alcohol. And in particular, did you find that you were a little bit more motivated, a little bit more energetic, a little bit more willing to do things?
Oh, I am like a different person. Like, I am so outgoing. Like, I love public speaking. I love speaking. I'm more like outgoing at a party than I would if I was drinking. Like, I just have this confidence now. And I also too, like, again, it goes back to the whole marijuana thing. I don't like taking anything, because I actually relapsed. This is how I relapsed before, was that I actually took an Ativan pill, like, and it's like 1 milligram. I was stressed out for something. I think my boyfriend at that time, we had a fight, and I took an Ativan, and I was like, oh, it's just not giving me the effect that I want it to. So I was like, oh, I'll just take a shot, or I'll take another one. Didn't do anything. And then I took a shot of vodka, thinking that would help. But then it turned into like a whole 40 or 26 like it was just, it's a gateway. And I know you probably hate that when people say marijuana is a gateway, but for me, it would be a gateway because anything that would alter my mind, whether taking gravel or anything that's going to sedate me or give me a different kind of feeling, is going to be my in for possibly drinking again. So I just have to be very careful. Everything I do now is super like natural. Like I don't even put chemicals on my body. Like I'm just super, super strict with that.
Yeah. I think that there's some people who need that level of discipline and they may have different neurochemistry than other people, meaning that, you may get more of an exaggerated response when you use, certain drugs. And so because of that, your body likes it more. You're going to be more susceptible to addiction. And people have teased this out in certain genetic testing, and they even have I'm certainly not making an excuse for people, but the reason there is even a relationship with food as well. So certain people do get more of a dopamine hit when they eat food, which is maybe why, they have to, or they keep eating more and more because, they get more of a dopamine hit than certain people when they eat. And so, for like, there's certain people out there like Eminem, Russell Brand, two people, they don't do anything. And like, I think people have brought up, psychedelics to Russell Brand, and I think he's very interested in it, but he just said like, for him, he just doesn't want to do anything at all, and I think that's a reasonable thing to do. And I think it shows a lot of, self-awareness as well. It's like, I've kind of identified what works and what doesn't work with my body. And I'm just someone who, I can't, touch alcohol. Some people can have one drink of alcohol and then or sometimes they can have 3 or 4 drinks of alcohol and then just not think about it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Whereas some people, as soon as they have one drink, boom, they need another one. That's me. Boom, they need another one.
So that's like my reward center, like my doctor explained, like my reward center. So when I have one drink, it hits me like that and I want a million after. But I'm the same with sugar. So that's why I have to stay away, because when I was recovering from booze, I had such a bad sugar craving, but my doctor was like, well, you're just doing that because you're replacing all the sugar. So at nighttime, I'd have a lot of like gummy bears or something. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do this forever. It's going to help me get through this phase. And then finally I got off the sugar. But even now, if I have a little bit of sweets, I have to control myself or I could go crazy. I have no control. Like I could really I need more to get stimulated than the normal person. So to get some type of, good feeling about it. But food definitely does. Like I'm not saying I'm hangry, but when I do have food or sweets, it instantly puts me into a better mood. But I don't have any, I wouldn't say mood problems. Like I have a lot of stress right now in my life, but.
How did you cut out the sugar, April?
Well, I mean, that's how I lost all my weight, basically. Like I've lost almost 25 pounds. I've just cut out, I try to minimize, I have bread, but if I have bread, I have sourdough bread in the morning, but otherwise I just don't eat sugar. I just cut it out. I mean, I think I'm probably pretty good now.
Just willpower, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah. And also too, I think a big thing with that is just not keeping things in your house.
Exactly.
If you want to binge eat in my house, you can't. Yeah. The worst thing you're going to find is a Quest protein.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's no way I can overeat. And I think I heard Derek from More Plates. I don't know.
Yeah, I know him.
He was on Rogue recently. He was talking about how Peter Attia, who you're probably familiar with as well, he's one of these doctors who wrote this longevity book recently called Outlive. It's an amazing book. Really
What's it
good.
called?
But Outlive.
Oh, okay.
Outlive. Yeah, it's really good. But he was talking about how he has a couple boys in his house and a couple kids. And so they like drumsticks, but he's I can't keep them in the house. So I'll eat 3 of them whenever you guys buy a pack. So he has to, take his kids and drive them to the grocery or to the ice cream store whenever they want, drumsticks. But I think that's what you should do. I'm not saying that, you should never have treats, but don't keep the treats in your house.
Go out
because if you keep the treats in your house, then you're going to eat them. Go out and eat the treats and then come home and then, just eat clean at home.
Yes.
And that way your habits are going to be, more geared towards your goals.
And that's what I try to do is I go, I work Monday to Friday. I'm going to eat clean, super clean Monday to Friday. And then when the weekend comes, like I love ice cream. That's my downfall, but I'll go out to Havens because I love Havens. It's like homemade ice cream and that's my treat. Like I'll have a couple scoops of that, but like I don't do, if I did have that in my house, I would eat it every day, but yeah.
Do you do that after workouts usually just to kind of minimize the damage?
No, I usually just do it when I'm like when I have nothing planned. I even when I do my workouts during the week, I'm eating clean. I do all my meal prep on Sundays, and I actually just recently turned vegetarian too. So I just
tell us maybe a little bit about that and why did you make that move?
Well, every book that I've been reading, I mean, I was a vegetarian a while ago, but not for that long. But a couple of different reasons. I've actually changed a lot in my sobriety. I don't know if it's because of my hormones or because I'm getting older, but I've found that, I have a cat now. And ever since I have my cat, I just have this more empathetic feelings for animals. But that's not the main reason. It's mostly to do with every book I've read is like plant-based diet. So I read this book, How Not to Die. I don't know if you've read that one. That's another great one. And again, it goes, and then there's the Netflix series, The Blue Zones, and they kind of studied all the different areas in the world that people live to 100. And it seems like the common denominator is always plant-based diets, right? I mean, who's ever said, hey, it's amazing to eat red meat every day? Like no one said that, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have a little bit of a different take overall, but I'm definitely, I'm an omnivore, so I, eat plants and I eat animals. I do think that eating high quality, grass-fed beef is going to be much better and not just better for your health, but better for the environment than eating, packaged meats that have, filled with nitrates and that kind of thing, processed meats. But, I do know vegan athletes who do well doing a vegan diet. And, if that works for them and they feel well on it, then they should do it. But I don't think people should pick a diet and do it just to stick to a particular diet. They should pick a diet and do it because it's what's best for them, like what makes them feel best, what makes them perform the best. Yeah. And if you find that a vegan diet, works for you, then you should continue to do that. People talk about carnivore all the time. Again, I'm not big on the carnivore diet either. But if you do it and it works and, you're doing you're getting your lipids checked and all that, and everything is fine, then, go for it. But, for me, I'm kind of more into the, I guess, plants and animals, like omnivore kind of diet where I, certainly eat a lot of high quality protein, a lot of high quality meats, but I do get plenty of fruits and vegetables in my diet.
And I think that's the key is that, so I love meat. I'll just say my favorite thing in the world is a steak, right? So this is not like a forever thing, but I do believe that, good quality of meat, but also not as much. I think people eat meat every freaking meal, like at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I think that's where the mistake is, that people are eating too much of it. And I think also people overeat by calories. And my boyfriend's always like, eat more. I'm like, no, I think I'm good. I think that's why I gained weight, because I really should be sitting at the 2,000 mark. I think I was really eating 4,000 when I was competitively powerlifting, because I was like, I just want to keep eating. I need calories to keep me strong, right? Meanwhile, not even selecting good quality food. I was eating a lot of junk, right? So that's what I'm kind of glad I got heavy, because I was like, I feel miserable. And then I just really became a vegetarian, not just because of animal reasons, but just for my health. And I do feel way more energetic and lighter. My mood has been different. I'm not going to stay like this forever. I even had a little bit of turkey on Saturday, right? Because we had this Christmas dinner. I'm not opposed to eating meat again. And if I do, I'll slowly incorporate it, but it'll be like what you eat. It'll be grass-fed. It'll be good quality, right? And it's not going to be every day. It might be every other day or something. So.
And so one question I had for you too, I don't know if you've been asked this before, but it seems like if you wanted to, April, you could just, I don't know anything about these like pre-contest preps or anything like that.
Oh
but
God.
It seems like if you did one of these, you would just destroy, bodybuilding. Have you ever thought of doing that?
I don't know. I do get a lot of people and I was like, thanks. That's like a compliment. I like that because I do have a good like frame, right? Like I have the wider shoulders. Of course I'd like to lose more. I don't feel like I could ever get a six pack. I don't know, but I've never really disciplined myself that much. But I do have, like, not to toot my own horn, I do have a great stature.
You do.
For it.
That's why I'm asking. I could just see, like, if you did one of these contest preps, like, I'm telling you, just like with powerlifting, you go straight to national champion, then straight to, Mrs. Olympia.
That would be amazing. It's funny. I always said that I didn't like them because I don't like the spray tans. I don't want to spray tan myself. And I wouldn't have any boobs. Like I hardly have any boobs as it is. So I don't know, like, I'm not going to get breast implants. So I don't know what that would look like. So.
What, and how come, just out of curiosity, just because I know a lot of women lately I've seen breast implant illness come up a lot over the past few years, whereas I didn't really see it over that period. Like, just out of curiosity, is that the main reason, or is it just other reasons? You just, like, aesthetically just don't like the look or something like that?
For me, my breasts don't make me a woman. So I don't care if I have them or not, to be honest. They're a pain in the ass. I hate bra shopping. There's a whole bunch of things. Like, I'm not like, I've never said, oh, I wish I had bigger boobs. Maybe I would for bench press just for that one day, but that's about it. But no, actually, it's funny going back to the whole gender affirming and the whole, like, these kids doing it. I shared this on a show the other day that when I was a kid, I actually wanted to be a boy. So when I grew up, I was a tomboy and I grew up with a brother and around boys, and I was also sexually abused when I was 6 years old. So after that happened, I actually turned myself into a boy. And I remember wearing boy bathing suits. My hair was a boy cut. I cut my Barbie's hair into a boy cut because I thought, if I'm a boy, no one will touch me. Men will come after me if I'm a boy, right? And I really thought I was a boy and wanted to. And then, as I grew up and I got through puberty and started developing, I got so, I would wear hoodies every day and I got so scared that even like my father would touch me, or like someone would be looking at me, she's developing, and I'd be attractive to all these men. And I thought, man, imagine like if we lived in the time today, people would be rushing me off to the doctor's office when I was 6 years old to get me, my hormones.
Yeah.
Like, it's just messed up. And that's why I say to people, just wait, let people get to their 20s when their brains developed. Like, there's so many kids now are identifying because they're scared and they have mental problems, right? Like, God, it's
yeah, no, it's wild. Like, it's something like the stat is something like 80 to 90% of people who are or identify as transgender as an adolescent or something just end up being gay.
Yeah, even Dr. Peterson said that. Like, it's true, and it's the same. Yeah. Like, that's what it is. Just let them go through the whole process until at least 25. Like.
And I know lots of girls who I was growing up with who would be considered to be tomboys, who later on were not tomboys. They were beautiful girls that lots of people were attracted to, kind of thing. And I think that theme is true not just in my life and everyone's life. Everyone knows a girl like that, someone who's a little bit of a tomboy and then they grew up and they're not like that. Even my own mother claims that she was a bit of a tomboy when she was younger. It says she mostly just played baseball with the boys is what she liked to do. And I can tell you she is not tomboyish, like, whatsoever. So, people do grow out of things, like, you have to remember, like, these are kids, they're adolescents. Like, we change. I mean, I change even now. I'm 39. I change all the time. So, I mean, for a kid to make a permanent decision when they're, in their teens, like, it's a crazy, crazy thing. So I've loved chatting with you today, April, but unfortunately we are running out of time here now. Where can people learn more about you? Can you share your Twitter handle, your Instagram handle, and everything else that you're doing?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is just my name. It's April.Hutchinson. And gosh, you know what? I don't even know my Twitter. I think it's Lee underscore. It's not my name, but you honestly just, if you search April Hutchinson, you'll see so many articles on me. I think it's Leah underscore Christina #4. But, and just to let viewers know too, I am working with Rebel News Canada, and they've so graciously offered to pay my legal fund for, because I will be, going,
Amazing.
Taking legal action against my federation. I do find out in December if my suspension will be rescinded. So that's cost money to have a lawyer for that. But also we will be going forward in the new year, most likely a human rights tribunal to go against different sporting agencies here in Canada to keep female sports female. Contact me too, because I'm also selling these hoodies that say keep female sports female. All the funds go to my legal fund. And I just got connected with someone yesterday, and they will be making my website for me. So I will have a website to put out in the new year with all my links, all my media, everything. And actually I just got sponsored by a company, so I'll be putting that out too. So
amazing. Well, lots of good things going on. And again, thank you so much for the conversation today, but thank you more for what you're doing. We want to keep females in female sports. We want to keep the biological males out of them. So, thank you so much again for what you're doing, April. It's awesome. It's a really, really good cause. And of course, thank you so much to all my listeners for listening. And as always, I will be back again soon.